Hi, I'm Chris Hay. I'm an independent consultant working with researchers from Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota, as well as the Iowa Soybean Association on a project to advance the conservation drainage practices of bioreactors and saturated buffers. Now, as more of these bioreactors and saturated buffers have gone in, one of the needs we've noticed is a need for more and better guidance for the farmers and landowners that have chosen to adopt these practices, as well as the conservation professionals working with them. So to help with that, we're developing a package of materials as well as a series of videos to help with that management. So we're actually here on site at a saturated buffer here in central Iowa, where we're going to focus on the management of these saturated buffers today. And to help with that, I'm joined by Gabe Johnson. Gabe is a PhD candidate at Iowa State University, where his research is focused on saturated buffers. So thanks for joining me, Gabe, to talk about management of saturated buffers.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to be here. As you said, my research is focused on these practices, and so it's been my world here over the past few years. I'm excited to help contribute to advancing the management of these.
Great. So I think many people watching the video will have at least a basic understanding of saturated buffers, but how about if you give me at least a little description of what a saturated buffer is and how it works?
Yeah, of course. So as we mentioned, saturated buffers are a conservation drainage practice for removing nitrate from our agricultural drainage. And so what we do with these practices, we have our tile outlet, and we come in and we install one of these control structures, and we use that to divert some of that water into a vegetated buffer along the stream. We use another perforated drainage tile to distribute that water through the soil, and then carbon in the soil and microbes perform a process called denitrification that removes that nitrate and helps improve water quality.
So at kind of a big picture level then, what should farmers or landowners that have a saturated buffer, or those conservation professionals that work with them, what are some of those things that they should be thinking about as far as managing their saturated buffer?
Yeah, so fortunately, big picture maintenance is relatively minimal, but there are some things to look out for. One is any potential sediment in the control structure, just damage to the control structure, looking at the vegetation and any other damages to the drainage system or the rodent guard at the end of the tile outlet.
Are there particular times of the year or particular times that they should try and inspect that saturated buffer?
Yeah, so 2 times of the year are fall and spring. Those are the times when we're getting out in the field for different activities. That's a good time to also go out and check these systems. In the spring, we want to go out and look and make sure these are functioning properly ahead of the drainage season, and in the fall, after we've had our annual flows, to make sure that it hasn't been damaged at all.
Okay. Any other times of the year or any other events that may cause someone to want to go out and inspect that saturated buffer?
Yeah, so one other important time is after any large storm events. That's when we may see potential blowouts in the in the drainage system, any damage just from surface erosion around the control structure or in the buffer, or any additional sediment or debris that could have gotten washed in during a large event.
Okay, and then any particular things other than that in the spring that they should be thinking about, or?
Yeah, so if we jump back to the spring, one thing to look for is to make sure that the stop logs are set correctly and that the flow is freely flowing, and we don't have anything blocking that like sediment. We also want to make sure that we have the control structures marked, which we'll get to in a little bit, but to know that we have those visible for when we're out in the field.
Okay, and then in fall, especially with harvesting equipment and stuff like that, I'm sure marking the structures and is important as well.
Yep, that's when marking is really important. We want to make sure these structures are visible when we have our large equipment out there in the field. We don't want them to accidentally get bumped by equipment, because that damage can really impact their functioning.
All right, so we've talked about things to inspect with the buffer. Are there some other maintenance or repair items that folks should be thinking about with these saturated buffers?
Yeah, so we mentioned rodent guards just a minute ago. That's one thing. If your rodent guard is damaged or missing, you can get that replaced. And also your control structure lid, if that's been damaged or missing, you can get that replaced. Same with the rodent guard by going to the drainage equipment manufacturers. So those are 2 things to look for.
All right, and we talked a little bit about buffer maintenance. Any concerns if folks are doing burning in their buffers?
Yeah, that is one thing to be aware of. If you do plan to burn your buffer, if you have a plastic lid on your control structure, And just in general, you want to protect that control structure from burning. A metal lid can help with that if you get close, but if you can leave a little bit of space around the control structure when you go to burn, that's really important to make sure you don't cause any damage.
All right, well, hopefully that gives you a little better idea of things that you should be looking for and doing when it comes to managing and maintaining a saturated buffer. For farmers and landowners, or again, those folks working with them, are there some particular places where they should look to find more information on saturated buffers?
Yeah, one big resource is the Conservation Drainage Network website. That has a collection of information on saturated buffers and their management. Beyond that, though, you can also look to your local NRCS or Soil and Water Conservation District office. They have lots of great resources. And then there's also just our various university extension websites that will have various handouts and things like that.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Gabe, for joining us and talking about saturated buffers. And again, this is part of a series of videos that we're doing to talk about management of these edge of field practices. And so check out those other videos. And again, hopefully you learned a little more about the practice and how to maintain it.